Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. If you're not new here, you know that I cannot throw anything away and that I like to make things out of trash. Well, the universe was good to me and matched me up with a fellow trash hoarder. So today, my boyfriend Matt and I are going to be making a DIY shoji-inspired room divider wall/light box using mostly scrap materials and a few other things. This is also the first project that we're doing for the loft. If you missed the loft house tour video a couple weeks ago, I'll link that video down below. Go watch that next. But since this is our first project in that space, I'm also going to be revealing the design for the loft bedroom just to kind of put this project in context and also to give me an excuse to geek out on design planning. So I can't wait to get started today. Let's turn some trash into treasure. Okay, so just to recap here, Matt owns this beautiful loft in a 1930s building that was converted to apartments in the 90s. We're gonna be building the DIY shoji wall in the primary bedroom. So before we jump into the project, allow me to reveal the bedroom design to you so that we can kind of see how everything fits together for this project. So best features of the room, we have this beautiful original brick floor, this chippy painted ceiling, which some people are not about. I really like it. I think it continues the loft industrial feeling through the whole space, especially in rooms like this in the bedroom that are missing those beautiful windows in brick from the other spaces. And finally, I really love the support column in here. I mentioned in the house tour video that this makes planning the space really tricky because it's a weird layout problem, but I actually really like this as an architectural detail, and again, something that brings in the industrial elements of the space and adds some rounded shapes to the space and a texture other than just drywall. Now for the challenges with this room. We have pretty much no natural light in the space other than the light that leaks through over the bathroom from the living room. There's no closet door, so we're seeing straight into the closet. There's this weird hodgepodge sliding door wall, and the partial wall by the bathroom and closet doesn't go all the way up to the ceiling, which somehow makes this room feel kind of temporary and incomplete. And finally, we'll drop the support column in this category as well. Love the look of it, but it does create a weird layout issue in the corner, so we'll have to address that too. Now, Matt and I both pulled some inspiration images and we're looking at a ton of Japanese-inspired spaces with wood screens, wood wall slats, warm neutral colors with some rusts and greens and gray blues, and generally serene natural vibes. We've been talking about this space a lot over the last couple of months and kind of collecting ideas, but everything kind of clicked together for me a couple weeks ago. It was one of those late nights where I couldn't sleep and suddenly all of the elements clicked together in my head, and so I put them into this rendering. So here's the list of key points. Paint the room in a creamier white to warm up the space, but to keep it light since it's a dark room. Add contrast with dark wood trim on the walls and dark painted baseboards. Build a half wall with a little shelf behind the bed to add dimension and light strips that will also allow us to run wiring for sconces and to float the nightstands by removing the legs to streamline the look. And maybe we'll pop some grass cloth or other wallpaper on that for texture. Add a custom shelving unit between the column and the wall to add height, division, and pretty storage. Add a vintage wardrobe around the corner of the column to add historic charm and concealed storage for linens. A lot of the kind of Art Deco styles that I've been looking at have just one door in the middle, which I think would be shallow enough and narrow enough to be able to open and not hit the column. And finally, build some shoji-inspired panels on the upper walls along the back and by the bathroom to maximize the height of the room, further divide the space, and add some light. So in this video with the materials that we have, we're just going to be tackling the wall by the bathroom. I do think that continuing this look onto the back wall as well and wrapping that whole corner of the space would be amazing. But we don't have enough panels for that right now. And there's also a weird ceiling height difference that's gonna need some problem solving. But you'll see later that the panels on the wall that we're putting up aren't quite long enough to reach all the way into that corner. So hopefully that screen will continue and cover that gap. You'll also see in my rendering the beautiful new rug from Revival Rugs, which is the sponsor of today's video. All I can say is that this rug from Revival was like meant to be. When we first started planning this room, a new rug was like at the top of my list on things to source. And of course I wanted something that was high quality, but with a unique design, but would also be timeless and last forever. So I started seeing Revival popping up everywhere, and I love that they sold vintage one-of-a-kind rugs, as well as designs that are made with high quality materials and traditional techniques that give that vintage rug kind of feel. So I put it on my list to reach out to Revival for any sponsorship opportunities, and they actually reached out to me first, so that's super cool. So the rug was really the first element that we chose for the room. The Karam rug in the salmon shade, which is part of the Studio Revival collection, echoes the warm terracotta shades throughout the house and ties into the green linen bedding that Matt already had. I also love that this feels so different to a lot of the shoji inspiration picks. We want this room to feel eclectic and not themey. So this rug will act as a beautiful accent to the warm woods and neutrals and add a bit of color and pattern. Right now, you can head to the link in the description to get 20% off your order, only available through my link. Thank you so much to Revival for sending us this rug and for sponsoring this video. So now that you're filled in on the design, that brings us to today's project. A simple DIY to start, right? Right. This project started when Matt got these wood window panels at the Lifecycle Building Center for $5 each. I actually went to Lifecycle for my Thrift With Me video last week, so I'll link that down below if you want to check out that store. Matt didn't know what he wanted to do with these, but he definitely had the shoji reference images in mind. When I saw them, I thought they would be the perfect size to fill the area between the ceiling and the partial wall by the bathroom. So we hatched a plan to extend those pieces all along the wall, add shoji paper to the back for a soft diffused look, and then light them up from behind to create a cool window effect. Sounds easy, right? Right? I know too much now, but let's pretend this is gonna be easy. Let's do it. First, we needed to create a plan for construction. The area between the ceiling and the top of the wall was big enough for a 1x4 sitting on the wall, then the screen, and then a 2x4 up top along the ceiling. We'll do 2x4 supports in between, and then we'll need some little strips for the lip of the screen to sit against. Matt already had the 2x4s on hand from the REISSUED, and then went to get the 1x4 from the REISSUED as well for $3. For the strips, I already had these thin strips on hand that were the perfect size left over from another project. So my dad cut them down to the lengths that we needed. Now that the weather is nice, the dogs love to hang out in the car while we work. With all of our pieces assembled, we needed to choose a paint color for the screens and the wood structure. After some deliberation, we landed on Cajun Red by Sherwin-Williams in a satin finish. I took the screens home to paint during the week since we needed to do the full install over the weekend. Meanwhile, Matt painted some of the wood for the structure. I had originally envisioned the screen wall in a cool brown. Matt suggested rusty red, and I wasn't really on board until I created my rendering, and realized that one of the problems that I was having is that all the color was very low in the space, making it feel off balanced. So bringing the color up off the floor to the top of the space felt like a better balance. These window panels were kind of tough to paint with so many little grooves that were dying to collect drips and pools. So after some trial and error, I found it best to stand the pieces up and try to tackle both front and back at once to prevent any drips or ridges. We have to get the back of the groove as well, since our paper will lay flat across the back, and we'll leave these grooves visible from some angles. After 2 coats, these were ready to go, so let's head to the loft and start the install. Alright, first step in the installation is to attach the 2x4s to the ceiling. It needs to line up with the 1x4 that will sit on top of the wall, and oh by the way, the top of the wall is just this weird metal flashing, so it's uneven and not possible to screw into. Great! So we placed the 1x4 where it sat the flattest on the metal flashing, and used a level to match that placement on the ceiling. With that marked, we can drill our holes into the 2x4s. We're placing the holes in areas where the supports won't be, since those areas will be supported already. We hold the 2x4 in place and mark the first hole with a touch of paint. That gives us the correct placement to drill a larger hole and insert these concrete anchors that get hammered up inside.
We're taking a drop-in anchor, measuring how deep it has to go into the hole, and then we're going to put tape on the drill bit so we know when we've sunk it in far enough. And then we're going to go just slightly past so that we have more support. How was that? Should I show my back better?
Yeah, that was great. Your best side.
Take 2. Okay, Kim. So.
Then we can line up the bolt and screw it into the anchor.
camera. I'm struggling. I'm like a crab with hurt knees now.
For the rest of the holes, we marked the hole with a smaller drill bit, drill the larger hole, sink the anchors, and screw in the 2x4. Sounds simple, but this took a while. With the 2x4 and 1x4 in place on the wall, we measure the lengths that we need for the 2x4 supports in between. This was when we realized that the whole plan for the design was based on the center measurement that was 27.5 inches, and the ends were closer to 27 inches, meaning that our screens would not fit between the top and bottom. No! The plan had been to inset the little strip so that the panels would sit back more in the middle of the 2x4s, but after some discussion, we pivoted and altered the plan so that the screens would sit at the very front, allowing the lip of the screen to sit over the top 2x4 where the fit was too tight. That way the bottom could stay level and the top could adjust to work with the uneven ceiling. So with a new plan in place, we cut all the 2x4 supports to length and screwed them in on an angle to attach them. It was important to get these attached really well since the 1x4 on the bottom won't be attached to the metal flashing underneath. It was also important to check the fit of the screen as we went to make sure the opening was the right size. We forgot to do that on the last screen and had to go back later to adjust the placement. With the full structure in place, I attached the little strips that would fit inside of the lip of the screens, flush with the front edge of the structure. I put them everywhere on the bottom and sides, but only in some areas on the top to account for the uneven ceiling. I attached these mostly with construction adhesive with tape to hold them until they dried, although we attached some later with little finish nails for a better hold. Meanwhile, Matt cut a section out of the center screen so that it can fit up around the pipe that shoots through this wall. We keep the cutoff piece and nail it to the frame so that it will line up with the rest of the screen and look as seamless as possible. So let's pop in the screens and see what we're working with. So yeah, this was super tricky since some of the openings were very tight or not quite square, meaning that we had to fiddle with them a bit to make them lock in. Foreshadowing for future difficulties. Can you guess what the big problem's gonna be? For now, this is looking really good and we're at the end of day one at like midnight. This took forever. I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone that's doing DIY projects on the weekend when you have a full-time job. As I'm presenting DIY projects to y'all, I'm very aware that I'm working on this constantly throughout the week. I have my parents helping me. There's so many elements that are coming together to make these projects bigger and bigger. But coming into this project with Matt, we were doing this over the weekend. Matt has a full-time job, so we had 2 days for installation. There were so many moving parts and we were finding a rhythm and a flow of working together and trying to find the right tools. And so this was kind of overwhelming and time consuming. And so it just got me thinking about everybody out there that's doing this as a true DIY hobby part of your life. Kudos to you for taking the time to make your spaces more beautiful. You are doing the best you can, okay? Anyway, this weekend install almost killed me. So on to day 2 and everyone is super tired. Oh, you're being so dramatic, yes. Oh, I want to see the pain. Matt started the day by sanding down the edges of the screen in the areas where it was fitting too tight, so hopefully we can slide these in more easily once we install them. And I started by caulking all the little holes and gaps on the structure. Caulking is one of those simple little things that make a project look so much more finished and professional. The hole on my tube of caulk was cut a little bit larger than I'd like, so I'm making a mess here. But see how much better it looks with all those little gaps filled? Of course we'll need to paint this again when it dries. While we wait for that, let's apply the paper to the screens. Matt and ChatGPT did a lot of research on traditional techniques for applying shoji paper, so we're using a traditional nori paste that I applied with a flat brush. I painted the glue onto the back edges of the panel, And then Matt lined up the paper and rolled it across, leaving some excess along the edges, with a weight on top to keep it as taut as possible. I tried to apply enough glue to saturate the paper in the areas of contact and make a strong bond, but not so much that there was any excess smushing out from the edges. It helped that this glue was super clear, so while it was hard to see it as I applied, it was also hard to see if it crept outside the lines. I continued to apply and Matt continued to unroll, using a large heavy dowel that he had on hand to press out any wrinkles or air bubbles. This paper is traditional Japanese shoji paper that Matt found online for $28 per roll. The roll was 23 feet long, so we were able to finish this entire wall with just one roll. And so for the materials that we actually ended up using for this wall panel, the thrifted wood and window panels, paint, paper, and glue, the total cost for this project was right around $80. Not bad at all. With all 3 panels complete, we left these to dry for a couple hours. That gave me time to touch up the paint where I caulked and create a smooth, unified frame. Once the glue was set, I cut along the edges of the paper with a super sharp utility knife and removed the excess. And Matt screwed a thrifted strip of MDF behind the frame with some brackets to create a little shelf to mount a light strip behind the screen. Now let's get these panels in place. The original plan had been to use this industrial strength Velcro cut into small strips to adhere the screens to the frame. However, when I tried to pop the first screen in place, it became apparent that the Velcro kept things from sliding in how it needed to, plus the slightly unsquare frame came back to haunt us here. Now that the strong paper was applied, our screens were more firmly square than ever, meaning that it was harder to bend them to fit into the hole. It was like 10 p.m. on day 2, and this is where I almost had a mental breakdown. So we moved on to the other 2 screens that weren't such a tight fit, and then came back to the first one off camera, sanding and shaving down the frame so that we could pop in the problem screen. The final step here is to add these Philips Hue light strips that were just over $70 to the shelf behind the screen.
They haven't sponsored us yet.
No.
But they should. We're hot, we're sexy, we love light strips. What more do you want?
Ooh.
This will give us lots of options for illumination both at night and during the day when this room is dark.
Just want to be done.
3, 2, 1.
It lights up.
You're so sweet.
I actually love how it looks like this with just nothing on too. The shadows are really cool. The sun is rising.
You may have noticed that pressing the very square screens into the unsquare frame created some wrinkles in the paper, like a lot of wrinkles. So the next day, Matt misted the screen with water, which allowed it to soften and retighten to better match the finished shape. He repeated this process multiple times throughout the day to get the maximum impact. He said that light misting more often was better than a one-time heavy dousing. I'm pretty sure he's still misting to get all the wrinkles out for the reveal, but it made a huge difference and looks way better. Alright everyone, it's reveal time. I love the design for this project because it's not only beautiful, but also solves some of the key problems that we had with this space. 1, the lack of natural light, and 2, this partial wall that felt cut off. Extending this all the way up to the ceiling makes the room feel so much larger and makes the space feel more enclosed and cozy, and having the lights time to come up in the morning with the rising sun makes it so much easier to wake up in this room. Thank you so much for joining us on this crazy weekend DIY Shoji install. If you like this video and this project, be sure to hit the like button. If you're looking forward to new videos on my channel, I think I'm gonna do a live next week. Drop down in the comments the day and time that works best for you to go live. I'd love to see as many of you as possible and hang out live. Coming up in May, we're gonna be doing some lighting thrift flips. We're gonna be hitting the built-ins in the living room. So much good stuff coming, so be sure that you're subscribed and that you don't miss it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.